When someone has an avoidant attachment style, love doesn't feel safe by default. It feels risky. It feels like a loss of control. So before they ever allow themselves to fall deeply for someone, they unconsciously put that person through a series of emotional tests, not because they are cruel, but because they are afraid. Afraid of dependence, of disappointment, of losing themselves. Understanding these tests doesn't mean you manipulate someone. It means you stop taking their behavior personally and start responding strategically and calmly. The first test is independence. Avoidants are constantly watching to see if you can stand on your own. The moment they sense that your happiness depends on them, their attraction begins to shrink. They don't want to feel responsible for your emotional stability. The hack here is simple but challenging. Keep your life full. Maintain your friendships, your goals, your routines. When they see that you choose them rather than need them, safety grows. The second test is emotional pressure. Avoidants often pull back right when things feel good. They want to know, will you chase, panic, or demand reassurance, or will you stay grounded? If you respond with anxiety or confrontation, it confirms their fear that closeness equals stress. The hack is emotional self-regulation. Calm confidence communicates that connection doesn't have to be overwhelming. Then comes the vulnerability test. They may share something personal and watch closely how you respond. Do you overreact? Do you interrogate? Do you try to fix them? Avoidants need to feel that vulnerability won't trap them or expose them to judgment. The hack is presence without pressure, listening without trying to control the outcome. Another test is consistency over intensity. Avoidants are often drawn to passion but terrified by it. Big emotional swings make them nervous. They are quietly asking, will you still be the same person next week, next month, after the excitement fades? The hack is steady behavior. Reliability builds safety faster than grand gestures ever could. There is also the boundary test. Avoidants may say no, delay plans, or ask for space. This isn't always rejection. It's an experiment. They want to see if you respect boundaries or take them as a personal attack. The hack is respect without resentment. When you show that space doesn't threaten the connection, they relax. Another test involves conflict. Avoidants watch how you handle disagreement. If conflict turns dramatic, emotional, or explosive, it reinforces their belief that relationships are exhausting. The hack is calm communication, addressing issues without emotional escalation or threats. Finally, there is the long-term safety test. Avoidants imagine the future before they admit feelings. They ask themselves whether love with you will feel like freedom or confinement. The hack here is simple but powerful. Be someone who adds to their life rather than restricts it. Avoidants don't fall in love through pressure, persuasion, or proof. They fall in love when fear slowly loses its grip. When love feels safe, spacious, and steady, their defenses soften. And when that happens, their commitment, once given, is often deeper than you ever expected. Avoidant individuals unconsciously test partners because, for them, emotional closeness has historically felt unsafe, unpredictable, or overwhelming. These tests are not deliberate strategies designed to hurt or confuse someone. Rather, they are protective mechanisms developed over time. An avoidant person often learned early in life that relying too much on others led to disappointment, criticism, or emotional suffocation. As a result, independence became their shield and emotional distance became their comfort zone. When a new relationship begins to feel meaningful, that shield activates automatically. Before allowing themselves to fall in love, they need reassurance, not through words, but through experience, that intimacy will not cost them their sense of self. One of the most common ways this shows up is through subtle emotional experiments. An avoidant may delay responses, pull back after moments of closeness, or seem inconsistent just when things are going well. These behaviors are not random. They are quietly observing how their partner reacts. Do you panic when they take space? Do you interpret distance as rejection? Do you attempt to close the gap with pressure, demands, or emotional intensity? Each reaction provides them with information. If your response feels overwhelming, it confirms their internal belief that closeness leads to stress and emotional responsibility they do not want. Independence is at the core of these tests. Avoidants are deeply sensitive to any sign that someone might rely on them emotionally in a way that feels heavy or consuming. They watch closely to see whether you have your own life, your own sources of joy, and your own emotional grounding. When they sense emotional dependence, their attraction often decreases, not because they don't care, but because dependence triggers fear. To them, love should feel like freedom, not obligation. These tests help them assess whether a relationship will enhance their life or restrict it. Another layer of these tests involves emotional regulation. Avoidants are often uncomfortable with big emotional displays, especially negative ones. When conflict arises, they are watching to see if emotions escalate quickly or if they can be handled calmly. Emotional volatility reinforces their belief that relationships are exhausting and unstable. On the other hand, emotional steadiness creates a sense of safety. It shows them that connection does not automatically lead to chaos. It is important to understand that these tests are rarely conscious. Avoidants are not sitting down and deciding to test someone. Their nervous system is simply responding to perceived threats. When intimacy increases, fear increases, and behavior shifts accordingly. This is why avoidants can seem warm one moment and distant the next. They are caught between desire for connection and fear of losing autonomy. Recognizing these tests changes how you experience the relationship. Instead of internalizing their pullback as a reflection of your worth, you begin to see it as a reflection of their fear. This perspective allows you to respond with calm confidence rather than anxiety. And when an avoidant experiences closeness that does not threaten their independence, something powerful happens. Their defenses slowly relax. Trust begins to form, not because they were convinced, but because they felt safe enough to stop testing. Emotional stability and self-sufficiency play a powerful role in how avoidant individuals experience attraction. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, emotions can feel like unpredictable territory. They may associate intense emotional expression with pressure, conflict, or a loss of control. Because of this, they are naturally drawn to people who appear grounded, composed, and emotionally self-regulated. When a partner can manage their own emotions without seeking constant reassurance, it signals safety rather than threat. Avoidants are especially sensitive to emotional dependency. When someone repeatedly asks for validation, reassurance, or clarity above where they stand can trigger an internal alarm. To the avoidant, these requests may feel like expectations they will eventually fail to meet. Even if they care deeply, the weight of being someone else's emotional anchor can feel overwhelming. This is why reassurance-seeking behaviors, though well-intentioned, often create distance rather than closeness with avoidant partners. Self-sufficiency, on the other hand, has a calming effect. When an avoidant sees that you can experience disappointment without collapsing, uncertainty without spiraling, and distance without panic, it subtly challenges their belief that intimacy equals emotional burden. You demonstrate that connection can exist alongside emotional independence. This is incredibly attractive to someone who values autonomy above all else. Calm responses during moments of uncertainty are especially impactful. Avoidants often test emotional reactions by pulling back, delaying communication, or becoming less available. They are watching closely to see how you respond. If your reaction is emotionally charged, anger, pleading, or dramatic confrontation, it reinforces their fear that closeness brings emotional volatility. But if your response is steady, respectful, and self-contained, it creates emotional relief. It tells them that they don't need to manage or fix your feelings. Emotional stability also shows up in how someone handles disappointment. Plans change, messages go unanswered, or expectations aren't met. An emotionally stable person can express feelings without blaming, accusing, or escalating. This kind of communication feels safe to an avoidant because it lacks the emotional intensity they fear. It suggests that problems can be addressed without turning into emotional battles. Importantly, emotional stability does not mean emotional suppression. Avoidants are not drawn to people who hide their feelings or act indifferent. They are drawn to people who can express emotions clearly and calmly without attaching urgency or pressure. There is a quiet confidence in being able to say how you feel while also being okay if the other person needs time or space. That balance is rare and deeply attractive to avoidants. Over time, consistent emotional steadiness builds trust. The avoidant nervous system begins to relax when it repeatedly experiences connection without emotional overwhelm. They start to believe that intimacy does not require constant vigilance or self-protection. Instead of pulling away, they feel more comfortable staying engaged. Ultimately, avoidants move toward people who make love feel manageable rather than consuming. Emotional stability and self-sufficiency show them that connection can be supportive without being suffocating. And when that realization takes root, attraction deepens naturally, not through persuasion or reassurance, but through the quiet safety of emotional balance. Respecting boundaries and space is one of the most important factors in building trust with an avoidant partner. Avoidant individuals often experience closeness as a potential threat to their independence, and they instinctively watch how their partner reacts when they set limits. This is not about rejecting love. It is about protecting themselves from feeling trapped or overwhelmed. When someone responds to boundaries with respect and understanding rather than frustration or pressure, it communicates that closeness does not have to come at the cost of personal freedom. This, in turn, allows the avoidant to gradually feel safer and more willing to engage in deeper connection. Avoidants often test boundaries in subtle ways. They may delay replies to messages, ask for time alone, or politely decline invitations without explanation. These behaviors can feel confusing or even RTFUL to a partner who is used to more direct or consistent engagement. However, the avoidant is observing whether you can accept their limits without interpreting them as rejection. If you respond with anger, guilt-tripping, or intense pursuit, it reinforces the belief that closeness equals emotional suffocation. Conversely, responding with patience, calm understanding, and acceptance demonstrates that you can honor their needs while still maintaining connection. The principle behind this test is simple. Avoidants want to ensure that emotional and physical proximity will not come with invisible chains. They need reassurance that taking space will not trigger punishment or withdrawal affection. This does not mean ignoring the relationship or becoming distant yourself. It means showing that you can maintain your own stability while respecting their rhythms. Over time, consistent demonstration of this principle reduces their internal fear that intimacy will compromise their autonomy. Space and boundaries also serve as a mirror for avoidance, helping them assess the emotional intelligence of their partner. When someone responds to boundaries thoughtfully, it shows maturity, patience, and the ability to navigate relationships without control or manipulation. This is incredibly attractive because it reassures the avoidant that the connection is sustainable. In contrast, boundary violations or insistence on constant closeness can trigger withdrawal and heighten avoidance behaviors, confirming their fears about intimacy. It's important to recognize that respecting boundaries does not mean becoming passive or disengaged. It is about striking a balance. You remain present, warm, and engaged while honoring their requests for autonomy. It's a subtle but powerful signal that love and space are not mutually exclusive. Avoidants are not seeking to push partners away permanently. They are testing whether love can exist without fear, obligation, or emotional pressure. Over time, this pattern of respectful responsiveness lays the groundwork for trust and deeper connection. Avoidants begin to see that their partner does not interpret independence as rejection, that love can be steady rather than consuming, and that space does not signal abandonment. When boundaries are consistently honored, the avoidant feels psychologically safe enough to lower defenses, deepen intimacy, and explore a level of closeness they might otherwise resist. This process takes patience and emotional awareness, but it ultimately leads to stronger, more secure relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. Consistency and steady behavior play a crucial role in building trust and attraction with avoidant individuals. Avoidants are naturally wary of intense emotional fluctuations and unpredictability in relationships because, for them, instability often signals potential loss of control or emotional overwhelm. They are highly attuned to patterns of behavior, noticing even subtle shifts in mood, communication, or availability. When a partner demonstrates reliability, calmness, and predictability over time, it communicates that closeness does not have to come with chaos, that intimacy can exist without compromising independence, and that the relationship is safe enough to explore further. Avoidants are often drawn to passion and excitement, but are simultaneously frightened by it. High-intensity emotional experiences, whether extreme excitement, sudden conflict, or dramatic displays of affection, can trigger their fear that relationships are inherently unstable or suffocating. These fears are rooted in past experiences, where unpredictability or dependency may have led to disappointment or loss. For an avoidant, seeing a partner who reacts consistently, communicates clearly, and behaves in a predictable manner helps to dismantle these long-held beliefs. It reassures them that love does not have to be turbulent and that emotional closeness can be approached without anxiety. Consistency also demonstrates reliability, which is a core factor for avoidance. They watch closely to see whether their partner follows through on promises, maintains their boundaries, and behaves in ways that match their words. When someone repeatedly shows up as expected, keeps commitments, and demonstrates stability in their moods and reactions, it communicates trustworthiness. This reliability is attractive because it signals that the relationship is not an unpredictable roller coaster, but a secure environment where the avoidant can lower their guard. Moreover, steady behavior allows the avoidant nervous system to relax. Their instinctive response to closeness is often cautious or defensive, but repeated exposure to calm, dependable behavior reduces anxiety over time. They begin to internalize that intimacy is not inherently threatening and that the connection can grow without forcing them to compromise autonomy. This steady influence is far more effective than grand gestures or passionate declarations, which may capture attention briefly, but ultimately reinforce fears of instability. Consistency also manifests in how conflict is handled. Avoidants are highly sensitive to emotionally charged disagreements because they can feel unpredictable and threatening. A partner who addresses disagreements calmly, without escalating tension or resorting to emotional pressure, demonstrates the same kind of steady, reliable energy that reduces their anxiety. It shows that issues can be resolved without chaos, further reinforcing the perception that love can be safe. Over time, this pattern of consistent, predictable behavior fosters a sense of security. Avoidants gradually perceive the relationship as a stable, dependable space where emotional connection does not equal vulnerability to overwhelm. As a result, they become more willing to invest, share vulnerabilities, and engage emotionally. Steady behavior, therefore, is not just a passive quality, it is an active form of reassurance that allows avoidants to trust, feel safe, and ultimately experience love in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling. Avoidants fall in love when connection feels safe, free, and additive rather than consuming or restrictive. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, emotional closeness often triggers anxiety because it can feel like a loss of autonomy or a step toward dependency. They are highly sensitive to any signals that intimacy might demand more than they are willing or able to give. As a result, their path to falling in love is not about intensity, drama, or constant reassurance. It is about experiencing a relationship that enhances their life rather than feeling like a trap. Understanding this dynamic is key to building meaningful connections with avoidant partners. One of the most important aspects of this process is creating a sense of safety. Avoidants need to feel that expressing vulnerability will not be met with judgment, pressure, or emotional overload. When they encounter a partner who consistently demonstrates patience, calmness, and understanding, it slowly reshapes their internal beliefs about relationships. Instead of anticipating emotional suffocation, they start to perceive intimacy as a space where they can be themselves without fear of losing control. This sense of safety is the foundation on which real emotional connection can be built. Freedom is another essential factor. Avoidants highly value autonomy and independence, and they are naturally wary of relationships that appear demanding or controlling. If a partner responds to their need for space with resentment, guilt, or attempts to force closeness, it reinforces the avoidant's fear that love is restrictive. Conversely, when a partner respects boundaries, supports personal pursuits, and allows for individual growth, it communicates that love does not have to come with limitations. This freedom encourages avoidants to engage more openly and gradually invest emotionally without feeling trapped. Being additive rather than consuming is equally crucial. Avoidants are drawn to partners who contribute positively to their lives rather than creating additional stress or pressure. This does not mean being perfect or avoiding conflict altogether. It means being someone who adds value, enhances joy, and supports growth without overwhelming them emotionally. Avoidants notice whether a relationship makes them feel enriched and capable rather than anxious and dependent. When the connection consistently enhances their life, it gradually shifts their defensive patterns and opens the door to genuine attachment. Patience and consistency play a role in this process as well. Avoidants often test relationships through subtle behaviors, such as pulling away or delaying emotional disclosure. These tests are designed to measure whether closeness can exist safely. A partner who responds with calm confidence, emotional steadiness, and respect for boundaries demonstrates that connection can exist without fear. Over time, repeated exposure to this stable, non-threatening dynamic allows the avoidant to feel secure enough to lower defenses. Ultimately, avoidants fall in love when they experience a relationship that respects their autonomy, provides emotional safety, and adds positively to their life. It is not about chasing, convincing, or persuading. It is about creating the conditions where intimacy feels safe and sustainable. When these elements are present, the avoidant's natural defenses relax, and they are able to experience love deeply and authentically, often in ways that are more committed and enduring than those with a less cautious attachment style. In conclusion, understanding the tests that avoidant individuals unconsciously run before allowing themselves to fall in love gives us the tools to respond with patience, respect, and emotional intelligence. By staying grounded, maintaining our independence, honoring boundaries, and showing steady, consistent behavior, we create a safe and freeing environment where connection can truly flourish. When love feels additive rather than restrictive, avoidants are able to lower their defenses and experience deep, meaningful attachment. Thank you all for listening and taking the time to explore these insights. May they help you navigate relationships with awareness, compassion, and confidence.